Hello everyone, my name is Mykola Vorobyov, class 33. I'm a fellow with Voice of America, arrived in November. So basically now I'm recording my first webinar, despite it's been like a year since I'm here, but still just want to share my experience because I'm a journalist and like how I found Atlas course, and I would say that maybe it will be even more timely because at this point we are looking back. So how was my experience here with the Voice of America in Washington DC, and how it runs, how media works in the United States, and what was my experience with Atlas Court. It's one of the most outstanding charity and leadership foundation I ever seen. So back into my, I put down some notes, so I will be following the plan of my discussion. So first and foremost, I would like to say about my background back in Ukraine. So this is not news, so there are not many Ukrainian fellows with the Atlas course, and I believe that I am a third fellow over the all time of the existence of the organization. So basically there were like two more fellows in 2013-2014, Irina Fedez with the Heritage Foundation and Max Bernasyuk. So both I know well, and that's how I found out about the organization, and that's why I decided to apply, and it was a successful move, of course. So basically, I applied in March of 2017, and it took me 6 months for the host organization to find my application. Then they gave me they shot me email saying, well, we are interested since you have such amazing background of journalism, and maybe part of, because I worked since I'm a student as a journalist. So basically I'm in profession over the 12 years, and then just shoot me email asking like, do you want to join us, do you want to come, do you want just to get your experience with the Voice of America, which is a broadcast government media, and it's broadcast mostly overseas. It has a few thousand, it has different divisions, so I serve with the Eurasian division of the Russian service. So basically this has Russian-speaking audience all around the world, and I would say that the Voice of America was very vocal during the Cold War because it just informed people about the truth about the situation behind the Iron Curtain. That's why first time it was aired on the air in 1942. So basically over the last 70 years, Voice of America is very vocal, is a very persistent of providing voices of freedom, people who love freedom, people who support democracy overseas, including in such authoritarian countries such as some in the Middle East, like Iran, for example, or Russia. So basically at this point we have like around 500 million of people who are Russian speakers, and I think that according to some surveys, Voice of America it covers about it has about 1 million views every day. So basically this is why I was so impressed. I was so encouraged to join the organization, to follow their path, to share their values, and somehow to be helpful with my experience as Atlas Course Fellow. Again, so I applied in March of 2017, and they took me approximately 6 months. So then I got suggestions, but I have to skip it in 2017 because I've got another position with Johns Hopkins University as a research scholar, but I was still looking for something. So despite I love academic life and I like to do research, I like to write papers, I like to think a lot actually. Sometimes I like to relax and stay in some cozy tiny office doing some stuff, assisting with research or working on some papers. Despite this, I was still looking for something more active where I can just go for the interview, do something for a broad audience, maybe just to run for some events, and of course to have more activities on the ground. Back to my experience, since the annexation of Crimea by Russia and then further invasion of the Donbas region in the eastern Ukraine, so I spent there around a year covering the conflict in the eastern Ukraine, covering that war in the Donbas, so which probably played the significant role for this for my supervisors to pick me for this fellowship. So basically, I'm very grateful for this, and of course, I was looking for some activities in Washington D.C. Why Washington? Because this is capital of the United States. Washington has a bunch of events every day, and probably you can just cover all of them. And of course, Washington has a lot of like happy hours and reception where you can save some like money from your stipend, which is like very small. And I understand you perfectly in these regards. So basically, I choose DC also because it's breathing all the time with new events and different political stuff. And I would say so. Washington DC probably I would call it a heaven for the journalists, for those who love politics, who covers the international affairs, and of course Russian-related, Eastern European-related things. So I got enrolled since the beginning. And after I arrived in November, after the first week of our immersion week of GLL orientation week, I just got I went immediately to my office, and I was really impressed because I used to be an expert with the Voice of America. Sometimes they invited me when I arrived from Ukraine, delivering my experience from the ground and this like inner stuff. But in this case, you feel like you are behind the camera, so you can make a difference. You can do a lot of interesting stuff, and you always interview people. You always record different interviews with them, so you always get something new. So I found for myself that this was the perfect way of education, or how you can educate yourself, or how you educate your environment, and how you can deliver the first-hand information from those sources who were involved in the most significant moments of the USSR, America, Russia, Ukraine history, during the Cold War, and then during the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then the future, the independence of Russia and Ukraine, and so forth. And of course, this was tremendously important and valuable for me to get this experience, because I was, again, because you have access to these people, and you can interview here. And while, for example, back in my country, when I stay in Kiev, and some of high-ranking officials from the United States, or experts, or somebody else, or people from the State Department, or journalists, they arrive to Kiev. Of course, they are not accessible as it's here in Washington D.C. So basically, you might wait in line for making an interview, or just getting their comments, and you may spend an hour for it, and without getting what you want. But here in Washington D.C., so my supervisor, we work on our schedule. We work on what we. So, for example, the planning for the further week, and of course, we were working about like who goes for this interview, who records that interview, and what we are going to do afterwards. So basically, that was a very important experience, and I would say that that's very interesting for me as for a journalist. And of course, I think it's worth writing a book about my 1 year long experience with Voice of America, and with like bunch of events. Like I probably attended hundreds of them, and they reported right about these published interviews and so forth. So I would say, so journalism combined with my research abilities gave me the perfect opportunities to fit the requirements of the Voice of America and spend there a year and be extremely valuable. I guess I believe that my supervisor agree on that. And yeah, I mean, and thanks to Atlas Corps, which the organization and its leadership and its wonderful team, wonderful staff who sent me there. So I'm thankful. Another point with my post organization where I was involved, it was producing of TV programs. So basically, I used to work as a writing reporter for all these years, and without very limited experience of working on camera, working on TV back in Ukraine. So with the Voice of America, along with my supervisor, so he sent me to work with a producer who runs the Week TV show. It's a weekly show which actually makes some forecast about the future of what is going to happen in the future. So we brought on the regular basis every Sunday. We brought the best experts. I mean, who could share their experience, who could share their values, and who could really make some prediction about the upcoming week, because bunch of events are happening every day. And so the idea of the program was just to put some forecast, to put some prediction what's going on next in the future. So what's going to be in the Russian, Ukrainian, American relationships, and you feel yourself like you are on camera, you're behind the scenes, you are in between, you can interact with these experts, you translate for them, you do some stuff, you do research for a TV host, which is also tremendously important and valuable for my experience when I get back home to Ukraine, which is unfortunately very soon, later this week. But yeah, I mean, that the week show, you can go through VOA, and especially if you are a Russian speaker, so you can find the link and just find how wonderful the program is, how wonderful the show is. It's run for 25 minutes every Sunday, and it's just amazing. So in my plans, definitely when I go back, I will do something like this in Ukraine. So another experience, basically, to interact with the experts again. So for example, you have some topic, right, and you go for this, and you just do some research, and you are looking for some experts who may talk about this, who research this, and basically then you invite them, and of course you meet them at the front desk. And doing, I mean, all our fellowship, all this experience, it's up to this small details. So basically, when you have like in the makeup room, like you have like 15-20 minutes, you interact with these people, you talk to them, and you sometimes arguing with them, but actually I would say that it's more valuable, it's more work, this first-hand experience, the information which you are getting first-hand, it's probably as you got your master's or your PhD in the United States, while like you don't pay for it, and but yeah, you have to sacrifice sometimes, like limiting yourself, living on stipend, but still, that's a so great, wonderful experience when you can see these famous people, really famous people, especially in your circles, and you can talk to them directly, and you see how they are open-minded, how they are open to your ideas, how they are also open to talk to you, to argue with you, to discuss with you some stuff, and so forth. So basically, this is also very important, as just interact with the people and getting their information, and sometimes like convincing them otherwise. Third, I would like to underline probably, it might go the first, but of course the team. So Voice of America has around 50, so the Russian service is the second biggest, and it has around 100 employees in my service, actually. So and it has studios also in the main studio is in DC, but also there are studios in New York and in Florida, Miami, and we have some streamers pretty much everywhere, like freelancers who do stuff in the occupied territories of Donbass, for example, or in Moscow, or in Kyiv, or in Minsk, St. Petersburg, and on or places here in the United States. So basically, interacting with these people, because you see the people from different parts of the Eastern Europe. I would say most of them are from the post-Soviet countries, like from Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, Armenia, Estonia, Lithuania. So basically, and Moldova. So basically, it's a great experience in terms of the diversity, in terms of like teamwork, inclusion, and so forth. Because like you really want to get this experience, and you really see the people, for example, like either cameraman or journalist or just correspondent or editors. Many of these people, they have, some of them, they of course, all of them, they have their degrees from various areas, mostly from mostly humanitarian science, but also there are PhDs, and some people who are in profession for like 20 years or 30 years. So basically learning from these people, getting their experience, knowing how many places in how many situations they went through, how many places they visited, and when I saw that I'm so experienced with my 12 years in journalism, I realized that I know nothing. I found people who are much more professional, while also they were they are from other maybe part of the regions. Some of them cover Russia, some of them cover Belarus, and so forth. But in many ways, the problem which faces our country right now are in many ways are common, because those are corruption, those is like pressure. Of course, Ukraine is more democratic country from the post-Soviet Union, but still, I mean, this the Soviet heritage, this legacy of corruption, this legacy of lack of the social services, healthcare, and so forth. Of course, all the countries faces the same problems. So basically, it was interesting to know and to get their perception on how they cover this stuff. So, or for example, how they cover the protests. For example, because over the last 20 years there were like dozens, maybe not as many as in Ukraine, of course, but hundreds of dozens, like maybe hundreds of protests throughout all Russia, and people who are work on there, who visited the protests, who cover it. I mean, they have the most valuable experience, and that's why many of them ended up on the West, because they were either persecuted in Russia by criticizing the government, or they was just kicked out from their country, and of course the office of Voice of America was shut down in Russia, right in Moscow, right after annexation of Crimea in early 2014. So basically, those people, they are decent people, they are very dedicated people, they are all also very thoughtful, and they are open not only just to sharing their experience, but to getting like your experience. Despite you are young, despite you are a fellow, so you are not a regular employee there, but still you are needed. You feel that people are waiting for your comments, they want to get your experience, and they want to engage you somehow in their activities. So basically, that is very valuable. So these three main core issues which I got from the Voice of America, and of course the host organization also, like Atlas Course, has hundreds of them, but I am biased in this situation, but I would say that the Voice of America is one of the most places where people, I mean, in my profession as journalists, they can get this wonderful experience, and of course they can, at 1 year or either 18 months, and of course they can bring back this experience back to their home countries and just start to implement it just immediately, because that is so interesting and so valuable, and you always want to share it with your community back in your country. And that's of course it causes other challenge with which makes this organization very competitive. So I am a third fellow there, and as far as I know, they are looking for other fellows for the next year. So guys, I encourage you to apply, especially if you like politics, political science, journalism, and so forth. It's on the website of Atlas Course. And of course, Atlas course as it is, so basically we are still like very monolith community. So I would say the majority people living in Ukraine, like 80% they're ethnic Ukrainians, then less Russian, Jewish people, Bulgarians, Georgians, Belarusians, and so forth. But basically, being an Atlas community, you see so many people, and you see how they struggle. You see people from the Middle East, you see people from the countries, the fellows who are which countries are at war as my is Ukraine. So basically, you interact with these people, and of course, there is a broad diversity. You see people from all around the world. So as far as you know, Atlas course has all over the last 12 years. It has had people from around 90 countries. So basically, unfortunately, I wish like more Ukrainians will come. So basically, having all this experience interacting with people, you still not only learn from their professional experience, but you can learn from their culture. You go for GLL, you go to the China Square, you go to the gala which we attended recently, which brings you actually a different reality. It just makes you so much open-minded. You meet more people with different, maybe sometimes values you don't agree with. Maybe some values where you are want to argue, and maybe you want to just somehow yeah, of course, to argue, because like we are all different, we have different culture, we have different level of education and so forth. But still, this aspiration for the leadership and the aspiration for making the world a better place for living, especially those people who went through these horrible things of these wars and other kind of conflicts, which and other kind of challenges with their country experience. Of course, they want to get this experience, and I'm talking right now not only about all the fellows, but about myself, of course. I would say so. Getting this experience is just amazing, because you can bring it back to your country and you want to implement it. So you are getting it not for yourself, because like if you just keep it with you, it just doesn't have as much effect as if you bring it home, you share it, and you engage more people, you share the values, and you show them another perception of the world, another ideas, another reality, and that's how you can inspire another leaders in your community back in your countries. So I find it as a perfect win-win-win situation when the fellows they win, the host organization, and of course Atlas course is a hub for these leaders. And I believe in those fellows who participated in this program, they already reach, or they are on their path of reaching a real the highest position in their areas, either politics or business or entrepreneurship and so forth. So I strongly encourage you to apply for this program. Also, don't forget to write your blogs, to do the webinars, because again guys, you don't keep this experience for yourself, because it won't mean as much as when you just share it with thousands of other people, and you can make just a wave of leadership. You make a wave of changes in the world, especially when it's on the verge of the serious risk right now in the 21st century. Despite we expected it would be the most peaceful century, but it looks like we still have a lot of challenges ahead. So I believe that people who stand on these values, the values which share the Atlas course, the values of freedom, the values of participating, like inclusion, the values of diversity, the values of democracy, I believe so we should create one strong team. Either you are a journalist or a politician or businessman, businesswoman. So we should stick together, and as far as I see, like most of fellows, they are in touch, and I believe they will make serious challenges, and they are already making challenges. So thank you for Atlas course, and thank you for my host organization, and thanks of course for those amazing fellows whom I really admire, who are the best professionals in their areas, and I hope we will keep in touch and we can share our experience, and of course we can continue our tradition of GLL, somebody else in our countries. And of course, like, everybody are encouraged to come to Ukraine. If you are in Kiev, if you need some information, if you need to stay somewhere, if you need to go experience the cultural stuff, if you need to attend some official events, I am there for you. There are not many fellows from Ukraine yet, but I will be working hard to expand this program in Ukraine, in other, like, Eastern European countries, but of course primarily in my home country. And I strongly welcome you to Ukraine. Just come, visit, see, and I'm looking forward to catch up with you there or anywhere else where we can meet, because we are awesome. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being all this year, and thanks very much for watching this webinar. And please feel free to share it in your community. Please still share it with anything you think, like anybody who think they are interested in this program. And I think together we can make a world a better place to live. Thank you very much. It's Mikola Vorobyev, a Ukrainian fellow, class 33, Voice of America, and good luck, guys.